Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of my Let's Play a Perfect Final Fantasy VII. So where we left off here, we are about to enter Junon. So you can see this in the world map here. Basically, we're about to go in to fight the boss Bottom Swell. There was some preparation done for this boss fight. I believe I have Cloud set up as a physical attacker with the Chocomog elemental attack in long range. This boss is weak to wind, so that's why we have Cloud set up that way, and this boss negates earth as he's floating. But the most important thing about the setup here is that we want to make sure that each member of the party has a damaging spell materia, because this boss has a mechanic very similar to that of Reno's that we fought before, where he imprisons a character, and that character will basically bleed out, and the only way to break the bubble is to hit it with a magic effect. And one odd difference too is that you actually have to target the bubble itself and not just the character like you did with Reno. So we met this little girl here, Priscilla, and we're gonna run to her rescue. So one thing to note here too is that this fight's pretty simple if you have one character that just keeps casting beta. It'll only take a couple casts. Also, any kind of like all magic damage or beta, for example, because it does area of effect damage, if you had a bubble on one of your characters, it'll break the bubble and hit the boss at the same time too, which is always nice. So here you can see with the bubble on Cloud, it's draining his health pretty rapidly. And there's an example of beta hitting both the bubble and the boss. The boss will cast this big wave move when he's done for the battle. And that's it. So we get a power wrist, which is a great accessory for boosting damage. And then now we need to play a minigame where we save this girl by giving her CPR. So the way this minigame works is, in my case, I'll hit the Y button once and the gauge will start to fill up. Once at any point during that, I can hit the Y button again to push that air into the girl's lungs. So it takes 41 breaths to revive her, and there's no time limit, so you're not under any kind of pressure. But I will typically do 10 breaths 4 times, and then 1 breath, and then that will revive her. So you'll see here, I'm going to press Y, and we'll see the gauge build up bit by bit. And we'll just go ahead and count 10 breaths. One more, and then we'll breathe out. And that's 10. And once we've done this completely, the girl will come back too, and this elderly villager will carry her back. Now that we've completed the CPR minigame, We'll come to this house here in the bottom, and this woman will let us in, and we can have a place to sleep for the night. Now, once we rest and wake up, and of course we'll pick that dialogue option here, once we wake up, we're going to have the opportunity to go talk to the group to progress the story, or we can go run off to Fort Condor for one of our optional missions. Here we're going to see some dialogue between Cloud. So you can tell that Cloud's very conflicted, and he can't remember exactly what happened that day. And so he tries to, talk to Tifa about it. So you can hear the marching music and whatnot. So there's going to be some kind of Shinra parade. This is the moment where you'll actually want to run out to the world map. We're going to go ahead and run over to Fort Condor and complete another mission. I'm going to go ahead and skip that here for you guys, as you already at this point know how to do this. But basically we'll run over to Fort Condor, complete another battle, and I'll show you guys the reward screen, and I'll see you in just a minute. So here we are, we completed this Fort Condor battle, and we earned ourselves the peace ring. And before we head back, I always like to take a quick pit stop here and get the free rest. One of the other things I probably should have mentioned a little bit ago too is that this trip to come back to Fort Condor and whatnot is kind of full of some difficulty because your Cloud's alone. But once you make it back, you'll see here that now we can step forward and progress with the party, so we'll come over to them and we'll head up these stairs to trigger this event with Priscilla. And apparently this small child had Shiva. So she gives us the Shiva materia, and they're going to talk about how we progress. So what Priscilla's going to do here is she's going to give us a whistle that allows us to call her friend Mr. Dolphin over. This allows to jump us up to the tower so that we can climb up and kind of get out of this area. So naturally it sounds dangerous, so the group volunteers Cloud to do it. But as soon as we get into the water and we have the whistle and we're ready to use it is when we're actually going to leave the water and head back to Fort Condor again. I know there's a very tight window to do this. And then we'll complete another Fort Condor battle and then come back once again. So this moment right here where we have control over Cloud again, this is where we'll head out of the water. We're going to run all the way back to Fort Condor. So this time, after completing this battle, we received 3 tincture. This is actually an homage to Final Fantasy V, I believe, where they changed the name of ether to tincture. So these is just 3 ethers. So once again, we're going to head on back to Junon to progress and head up the, with Mr. Dolphin's help, up the tower. The only thing else that I would recommend is this is kind of your last chance to farm before you progress into Junon, and there's not really any saving opportunities, so it's very important that you take a minute and make sure that you at least have 8,300 gil. You can see that I have 7,900. We're going to get 5,000 for completing the first minigame right, which will put us at 13,300, which is exactly what we need to be able to purchase the items that we want inside of the Junon area. So if you don't have anything to sell ether-wise, or you're not going to win the minigame, then make sure you have 13,300 gil. If you're going to do what I do and win the minigame, you can go in with 8,300. So here we are, we have 8,500 gil, which is plenty, and we're going to head on in and progress. This is the last time that you can make a save before you do this minigame, and this minigame is kind of tricky, so I do highly recommend that you just make an extra save so you can come back to this point if you need to. But I'll show you guys my tips for the easiest way to complete this minigame. So once you're in the water, just don't move anywhere and press the whistle button, which in my case is Y, and after 2 whistles you'll land up on the platform here and you can progress upward. And we get our first look at a large Shinra airship. I remember this being like the pamphlet art for the original box. So at this point you'll just head down screen, and then we're going to come over to this section that looks like a chest, and it's going to drop us down. And then we're going to head into this building below. And these Shinra soldiers mistake Cloud for being a soldier out of uniform. So we have to listen to them, and we're going to head into this room here and put on a Shinra uniform. So they're going to have some soldiers come in and show us how this minigame works, but I'll kind of explain it. This one is simply a marching minigame. All you need to do is, there will be a section of soldiers marching. You'll need to run into the line formation in the very back and march along with them, which means you'll need to actually walk. You can't use run. So in my situation, on the Switch controller, the analog stick is run and the D-pad is walk. So I'm going to run into line, and then I'm going to use the D-pad to walk along with the troops. And then every time it says now on screen, I'm just going to hit the select button, and this is going to make the score go up. I believe you can mash the button. I think that's what some people say that you can do. I just hit it as it says now. But there is one other thing to note. You do want, for these next 2 minigames, it's much more helpful to have all of your field dialogue speeds set at default. So you'll see in just a moment here, after we leave this cutscene, I'll go ahead and make that change. This is just kind of showing us the very large gun that Junon is known for. So we're going to need to meet up with the squad here. So here I'm just going to go ahead and make that change. We're going to drop field message down to default. That's good enough. And we're going to go down this alley. So you can see the live TV ratings down in the corner. And you can see how the troop ran into formation and started moving his gun around. So there are a couple dialogue screens here, so we're going to miss a couple opportunities to jump in just yet. He says to sneak in from the back, but I'll show you. What I do is I actually just hold down on the analog stick, and as soon as the game, like right now I'm holding down, and as soon as the game gets to a point here where it's going to let me run into line with the team, it's automatically just going to keep running me downward. So I'm holding down, here we go, still holding, and then I'm going to walk and just hit now with the nows on screen. And you'll see my score climb up. And there you go, I got to 52. So if you get over 50%, you'll get 5,000 gil, which is the max reward. You can get a couple other like lesser items, but obviously we're playing for perfection here. We're going to go for the 5,000 gil. So that's the first minigame complete. Heidegger comes over and beats us up a little bit. And they're blaming us. I don't know why, but they're talking about Sephiroth being around. So at this point, Cloud kind of gets punished. It doesn't matter which dialogue choice you make here. But he says, no break for us. And then he's going to show us the next minigame that we're going to do. The next minigame that we're going to play is a simple input minigame where on screen it pops up inputs and we'll have to select those inputs. This can be confusing if you've bounced around between like Xbox controls and Switch controls as their buttons are like flip-flopped, and you know, I make mistakes for that reason all the time. But you will have to make sure that you're facing the correct direction. So sometimes he'll say left or right, and you'll need to hit left or right to turn your character. Otherwise you won't be earning any points even if you're doing the correct input. And then at the very end, they're going to have a special move, which Cloud demonstrates his victory pose from battle, and they decide to go with that. So the special pose actually gives you 30 points all by itself just for pressing a button at the end. So it's not too hard. And basically here we have a little bit of freedom, so we're going to knock out a few things. The very first thing we're going to do is come into this first building, and we're going to make a purchase. We're going to buy the seal and the revive materia, as they are the only materia we don't have up until this point. And then we'll head down this alley here. This alley has a weapon shop in it. And this is actually where all of the weapons that we stole earlier in the game are located. And there's also a diamond pin, which is new. So if you are using red, I recommend buying it. Otherwise, you can save and hold off that 1300 for just a little bit later, and we'll steal it as well. But we can go ahead and purchase it here. And then in this next to last building, there's actually a Shinra soldier hidden here in this doorway. If you talk to him, you can come on in. And down here is another beginner's hall with another enemy skill materia, which is obviously super rare, so definitely pick this up. And if you have any questions about anything else, you know, detailed, you can talk to those guys as well. But then head upstairs and we're going to pick up some items. A mine source. This little Shinra soldier here is a 135th soldier. They're just a collectible item. They don't do anything, but obviously that's the name of the game for us, is collecting everything. We'll pick up a power source and a guard source on the 3rd level, and then we'll head back down and out. So now we can move through the screens. There's going to be a few screens to run through here. This screen is actually really relevant, and we'll use it to grind enemies later, but for now it serves no purpose, so we'll move on. So in this next section, the very first room here just has like the Turks in it if you want some dialogue. But then in these other rooms, there's some items for us to pick up. This is an inn. So this here is a shop in its own, but nothing of value for us. We're just going to go ahead and move on. And then on the very 3rd floor here, this guy sells accessories. So we want to buy 1 silver glasses and 1 headband. These prevent against darkness and sleep, respectively. And they're going to be extremely helpful for something that we're going to have to farm up here in a little bit. And we'll come back to the inn in just a moment to make a save. Otherwise, we're going to go to this 3rd building here. And there's some items in here to pick up. In here there's a speed source. And then upstairs there should be another 135th soldier. There he is. And then now, the very last building is a weapon shop as well, but it doesn't have anything different until we come back later. So we can just head back to the inn. I made a mistake here, ran into that door. And we'll make a save. Again, this is the last time we get to save before we kind of jump into a big section of the game. And this mini game, some people might have trouble with it, so I recommend saving here. But we're going to go ahead and push forward now. So a lot of people call this the Rufus send-off minigame because we're going to be kind of doing some marching poses and stuff for Rufus. You'll see Red 13 pop his head up here in the background as well, but basically the way this game works too, just to kind of give you guys the point scheme, if you get between 50 and 90 points, you'll get what's called an HP plus materia. It's a very good materia, and it's often considered to be the better item. But what we're going to do is we're going to aim to get the Force Stealer for Cloud, which we have to get over 100 points. So the Optimist would get the HP plus materia, because you can get the Force Stealer later, but the Perfectionist is going to have to do the best on everything, and so we're going to have to get the Force Stealer for Cloud now. So honestly, once you get 70 points, you can kind of just stop and wait and then do the victory pose at the end, but I do find it a lot easier for you to just focus on like 1 or 2 buttons if you're struggling with this game. Like, just focus on the A's and B's or something, and you'll have no problem getting the points that you need. And then press any button here and you'll do the special, and that'll get you a free 30 points. And now at this point you can actually do little inputs with the D-pad and the buttons, and you can make Cloud do some different poses and whatnot. So the president gave this Shinra soldier a cloud sword. It's kind of weird. But yeah, basically that weapon is a double growth weapon for Cloud, so we can double the AP growth on 3 materia there. And we're going to use it quite a bit here for a little while now. So now that this is complete, we're going to sneak onto the boat and take off. So now we're heading across the ocean, we're heading to Costa del Sol, and we're going to have this little cutscene here, and then we'll appear on the boat. Alright, so we made it to the boat, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.